Look out the window. Aren't you worried? I mean, everything is great all over the world. Everything is great. Even Japan, which was in a bear market for 35 years, is making all-time highs. China is booming after being hit by the virus and hit by a property bust. No, everybody's having a wonderful time. Well, maybe North Korea is not having a wonderful time. And I have found in my life that when everybody's having a wonderful time, you better look out the window and see if something is going to happen that's not good. So I'm looking out the window. I'm not the only person who knows that there are problems on the horizon. I mean, the U.S. debt is staggering. If you just look at the numbers, and I'm afraid nobody in Washington looks at the numbers, but they're incomprehensible. They can never be paid. I have young daughters. They're going to have huge problems with the U.S. economy and currency in their lifetimes. It's a good time to be an old American. It's not a good time to be a young American because young people are going to have lots of problems. I remember, in 1924, Britain was the richest, most powerful country in the world. 50 years later, it's not a typo, 50 years later, Britain was bankrupt. Totally bankrupt. The IMF had to help them pay their bills. So this has happened before. I'm not suggesting when the U.S. is going to have those problems, but I know they're coming. I've read enough of history to know that they're coming, and it's not good. But that doesn't mean right now not everybody's having a good time. Nobody sees any problems on the horizon. There's no war, there's no famine, there's nothing coming down the road. So I'm starting to worry. History shows this is happening to us, and that means that the U.S. dollar is going to come under serious pressure sometime in your lifetime, my lifetime. We're going to have more and more currency crises. And my problem is, well, first of all, I own a lot of U.S. dollars at the moment, and I will because many people will look for a safe haven during a crisis, and they think, for historic reasons, that the dollar is a safe haven. It's not, but people think it is. I hope that I'm smart enough that when it goes up a lot, that I'll sell it. I cannot find a new competing currency for the U.S. dollar. All the ones that you would think would be logical have many basic flaws. So the world is going to have more serious problems in the next 2 or 3 years. Be worried. For some reason, the U.S. stock market is making all-time highs, even though the U.S. potentially has problems. So yes, that's what people are doing, but that's part of the flight to the U.S. dollar. If you're going to buy U.S. dollars, you got to own something. And many people consider stocks, bonds, whatever, currencies, the safe haven. I know it's not, but as long as people think it is, it is. And I repeat, I look at the numbers and I am stunned at the U.S. situation. And I don't like it. I'm an American citizen. My kids are American citizens. But unfortunately, most people in America could care less. And Washington says, oh, don't worry. We'll be okay. We're America. Well, you say it's a slow burn. It is a slow burn, but it's been going on, I guess, technically since about the 1980s. America became a debtor nation for the first time. So for 30 or 40 years, America has been a debtor nation, and it's getting worse every day because we keep spending money we don't have. So yes, it has been a slow burn, 30 or 40 years. But these things come to an end. They always have. And then suddenly, everybody says, oh my gosh, do you know that America's in debt? You know America has huge debt? And they'll all be shouting at each other. How did this happen? Who did it? You did it. Somebody did it, These people in Washington did it. No, the people in Washington, no, it's not us. It's not us. It's the foreigners. It's all because of the foreigners. Throughout history, when a country has problems, the first thing the government does is blame the foreigners, no matter what it is, no matter where it is. Nobody wants to say, oh, yes, we made a mistake. We fouled things up. We have horrible problems. No. They say the foreigners. It's those horrible, evil foreigners. That's the problem. And then they make even more stupid laws. They put on exchange controls. They do everything to make it worse. No, you should be worried. You don't have to be worried today, but you should be cautious and thinking about it. I own gold. I've never sold any of my gold, which I've had for decades. And if it goes down, I hope I'm smart enough to buy more. If I were buying something today, I would buy silver. I own lots of silver as well. And silver is down 40% or so from its all-time high, while gold is making all-time highs. But gold and silver have been strong, are strong, and that's because somebody is worried about something, whether it's currency debasement or war, bankruptcy, who knows what they're worried about, but somebody's worried about something. I own both because I know, I'm an old peasant, and all of us old peasants know you better have some gold and silver in the closet if something goes wrong. And that's why I hope I'm smart enough to never sell my gold or silver. Well, my kids have it someday, and I hope they don't sell it either. But the world does face war, depression, inflation, there are all sorts of things going on out there that could be very, very disruptive. But at the moment, nobody cares. Everybody says they're not so serious. I hope they're not serious. I don't want to have a war. I don't want to have depression. I don't want to have bankruptcy. I don't want any of that stuff. So let's hope the world's going to be okay. But I'm cautious. If you look back to previous periods in history, what happened was you had a little war over here that nobody paid much attention to, and then another little war over there. People ignored it. And the next thing you knew, oh my gosh, it's on the evening news. And everybody knows about the big war that's taking place. History would indicate that the world is sliding towards more war and bigger wars. So be worried. I'm worried anyway, because I wish human beings were smart enough to avoid war. Human beings have been having wars for hundreds of years. No matter how smart human beings are, and no matter how much somebody can sit down and say, this is a stupid war. They all say, yeah, it's a stupid war. It'll be over in 6 months. And it never is. So be worried. Why is America getting involved in all of these things? Don't we have better things to do? We have gigantic debts. We can't even keep our bridges proper. Why are we spending all this money going around shooting people we don't even know that have very little effect on us? That's my main question. Now, having said that, yes, okay, it's insane. But Washington does many insane things and has over the years. I have no defense or explanation for why you and I are spending money on Ukraine. I have no answer at all. Washington doesn't either, but they're doing it. And they're spending our money on crazy things. Yes, I think if you gave people a test for insanity, we would not have many elections in America, because most of the people who would try to run wouldn't be allowed to run, because they should be in a home somewhere. But they're spending your money and mine on these crazy things. There are fundamental problems developing in Asia. Asia is certainly much more prosperous than most Western nations. I live in Asia. Asia has been rising for a few years now. Creditor nations are in Asia. Asia, though, is building up its own debt now, too. You look at Japan. I love Japan. It's a fantastic country, but it is staggering to me how much debt they have built up. And Japan has had a declining population for 15 years. There's no prospect of it changing. They're not having babies, which is their business, not mine, but they don't have immigrants. They have very, very few immigrants. So I don't see the future of Japan. One reason they're selling their treasury is because they're running out of money. They got to get money somewhere. They don't want when the voters come in and say, oh, we need a new road. They don't want to say, go away. They build a new road. But they got to get money, so they sell their treasuries, which is not good for you and me. It's not good for the U.S. It's not even good for them. But if Japan has problems, that means Korea is certainly going to have problems. Even if DMZ opens and there's an open Korea, it's not going to solve the problem. Even China is building up debt. 25 years ago, nobody would lend money to the Chinese, but now even China has debt now. I don't know any country in Asia that doesn't have potential financial problems. I live in Singapore, which has been a paragon of virtue, but even Singapore has big debts now. They don't talk about them. Nobody likes to talk about their debt. Washington doesn't talk about the debt. They say everything's great, but we have to face facts. Countries in history have gone into decline. I wish it were easy to say, oh, okay, everything's great and everything will be great forever. Wouldn't that be fantastic? What a good world we would have. As I look around the world, I cannot find any country right now where I can see nothing but well, maybe Uzbekistan. There are a few countries which are emerging from bad times, but very few. Maybe a couple in Africa, but very, very few in the world. I own shares in Uzbekistan, full disclosure, and hope I'm smart enough to buy more. But I don't know many like Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan was taken over by the communists, by the Russians, after the 20s, and became a Soviet satellite state. I will tell you a story. Tamerlane, who was from Uzbekistan, who conquered a lot of the world a few hundred years ago, was from Uzbekistan. He's buried there. In his tomb, on his tomb, it says, "Here lies Tamerlane. Anybody who disturbs this tomb will bring chaos to the world." This was 500 or 600 years ago. He was buried there. The communists took over Uzbekistan, and in 1941, the Russian archaeologists went into Tamerlane's tomb to see what was there. That very day, Hitler invaded Russia, and the Second World War went out of control. So Tamerlane was right. So if you go to Uzbekistan, please do not disturb Tamerlane's tomb. Leave it alone. Leave it in peace. But, this has happened many times in history. Uzbekistan is on the rise again. It has lots of natural resources, lots of man-made resources, but everybody builds up debt eventually. I own Uzbek stocks, but I don't know many countries in the world where I would like to buy shares in 2024, 2025. Price of natural gas is low by historical standards. Natural gas in history has sold much, much higher, and it will again, if you ask me. But so I'm not long natural gas, except as part of an index or something. But no, I'd rather own natural gas than be shorted. So don't short natural gas. COAL? Well, sure. It's a hydrocarbon. People are down on hydrocarbons now. But when you go in and you flip the light switch, you want the lights to come on. So people are not going to be so agitated about coal someday. When the lights don't go on, everybody's going to call their congressman and say, "Where are my lights?" And the congressman's going to say, "Start mining coal some more." Well, I own one uranium stock, which I have for a while. So demand for uranium will continue to grow, and the supply is not booming. So no, I own it. Who knows if I'm right, but I do own it. My first observation is we will have an election. I hope. If we don't have an election, we got serious, serious problem. So we will have an election, which is good news. Considering what's happened in other countries over history, sometimes things get so bad they don't have elections. They call it an emergency. Now, one of them will win, either Trump or Harris. I will not vote for either of them. I've always voted ever since I've turned 21, but I have never voted for a winner. You look back at the people who've won the presidency in my lifetime, you'll say, "How did you know? You didn't vote for Richard Nixon? Why not?" Every one of them. I am proud to say I have never voted for a winner. I doubt if I'm smart, but maybe it's just that I'm a contrarian, but none of them have ever appealed enough to me that I would vote for them. So having said that, one of them will win. Is it good for America? No. It's good for their friends. If you know who Mr. Trump's friends are or Mrs. Harris's friends, you can buy their shares because one of them is going to win. And whatever they do, they're going to make sure their friends are happy. So if you can figure out who their friends are, you will be happy too. If you invest in their friends. But that's about the only thing I can see that's going to be good from this election or previous elections. Trump has friends, donors, contributors. So does Harris. Both of them have contributors. And their contributors will give them money and expect to get something in return. I'm not endorsing their friends. I'm just telling you how the system works. And if you want to invest in their friends. But be worried, because I know they're both going to make it worse. This is a simple lesson of history. In Washington, they will say, "Don't worry, it's different this time. We have things under control." As you well know, whenever you hear the words, "It's different this time," leave the room. Leave the room as fast as you can, because it's never different this time. Debts, bankruptcy always occur. I'm just telling you facts. I have to live my life in a world, and I have to live the world as it is, not as I would like it to be. I wish I could close the window and say, "Don't worry." I've been around long enough to know, close the window if you want to, but you better worry. I know, and the politicians, if somebody does raise the issue of the debt, the politicians will say, don't worry, this is Washington, we're Americans, and it's no problem. I hope that's never been correct, but I hope that historically that has been a time to be worried and ask questions. I urge you to be worried and ask questions.